Okie dokie. Here we go again. Second show of the night. I don't think I could stay up much later. I'm gonna have to try to fall asleep, otherwise I'm gonna be causing accidents on the road. Don't want that. Alright, let's see. Okay, I'm live, that's good. I'm alive. I'm alive. Alright. And it probably takes a while before people show up, if they show up. And let's see. Okay, there's 5 people now. Let's see here. So, hey, how's it going, Double? So, Stork kind of posted in a DM group for Twitter about Mediacom outage map. I wonder if that's because of just the cold weather. Who knows? Most likely that's the case. Alright, let's see. I guess see. Manage participants. There we go. We're all set. Hello. You're muted.
I do that all the time.
Yeah.
This is actually quicker than it was to.
What do you mean quicker?
To get on, it was quicker. And I think maybe him.
Yeah, could have been his connection speed. Something's probably wrong. Oh, I should have adjusted my streaming session. Dang it.
You want me to get out?
No, it's fine, because I'd have to stop this thing. Let me see. Yeah, I think I'm gonna try something.
Yeah, when I saw y'all bundled up in the coat and everything, you just remind me of an Eskimo.
It's cold here, even with some of the heat on. It's still cold.
What's the temps like over there?
Negative. I think it's like -2, but it feels like negative. With the wind chill, it feels like -11 or something.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm a real baby when it comes to getting cold. I don't like it.
Okay. There we go. I think that's better.
Where are you, Snark? Where's Stevie? Come on in. Welcome to the jungle.
Shoot. Stevie's getting a snack break. Should be back in 10. And while that's happening, I'm trying to figure out why I'm dropping frames. I don't think it's... Okay. It should be stable now. Yeah. Okay. Let's see how that goes. This just must have had it unstable. That's what I get for fooling around with all these settings.
So what is dropping frames?
So on OBS I have it set up at 60 frames per second, except if your graphics card can't keep up that amount of frames, it drops the frames in order for this to keep going. So usually what you'll see is just kind of some artifacting occurring. If not artifacting, it might just glitch and kind of, you know how
I get it.
I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, it's like it's a little bit different than it is from like a bad connection. Like for the bad connection, you'll probably see like what happens with James. With bad frame rates, you just see just glitchy issues. You might not like for example, you got HD quality, but then you might not actually be outputting HD quality. It might be lower quality. That's just all it is.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, and it's going. It's good. I'm not dropping frames anymore, but I'd like to figure it out. That's my issue. Is like I want to fix and test things out to figure out what the cause was. That way, I'm always running optimally and efficiently. But that's no.
There's always one thing or the other, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like so with overclocking, it's just free. It's just making things faster for free, pretty much. And so that's what I'm doing, rather than having like a super great, like a graphics card these days. If I wanted to get the next level in a laptop, you're talking about like $300 extra just for that small upgrade. But with overclocking, you can pretty much get the performance of that, and maybe even the next one that's 300 more than that one. So saving like $600 maybe, just overclocking. But of course, you know, with a next best better card, you can always overclock that one, etc. So it goes up and up. Basically, it's just a way to save money, really, to get what you need with the least amount that you're willing to pay. It's like I don't really buy laptops new because it's just so expensive. I just end up buying used from people, and just saves much more money. Plus, laptops get outdated so fast. People end up selling them more than they do anything else, and so it's almost no point in buying a laptop really new.
And then I read somewhere that a lot of them get sold at like 6 months because you've always got those people that have got to have the newest gadget.
Yeah.
They're never happy.
Yeah.
It's like, sure, I'll take your 6-month-old one at that cheap of a price.
Yeah. And and that's kind of a fun thing for me is like someone could have a system that's $4,000 or $5,000 that they might pay for and say it's the greatest, latest and greatest, and then I could just build something that's maybe $400, or maybe build two of something that's like $400 each, and make it faster than what that person spent for like $5,000. And you know, new doesn't necessarily mean better. It's just convenient to have something that's the best out there without having to build it yourself or anything. I mean, I guess it's always been like that, really, right? Because you could kind of always build your own stuff and make it as good as anything else out there. You just have to put the time into it.
Just time and the know-how and good deals, and you've got. One day I want to learn how to do all that.
Yeah. It's hard because technology moves so fast. It's not like woodworking, right? Where you get a used chair and fix it up and make it awesome. The thing is, technology just always moves. There's always something new. There's always something better. And then you have to look into the details of each. I mean, if you just look at SSDs and the different types of NAND, different types of controllers, different types of flash, it's just, and you've got some companies that just use someone else's controllers, use someone else's memory, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just hard to keep up. Like I used to keep up with that all the time. It was just kind of a hobby. But man, these days it almost doesn't matter anymore. I mean, what's the difference between, you know, being able to transfer something 1,000 gigabytes per second as opposed to 600 megabytes per second? I mean, it seems like it's almost twice as fast, but what are you actually transferring all the time that that you need to go so fast? I mean, most of my stuff, unless I'm actually um, editing and transferring all these files over. No, well, see, the thing is, even if you transfer the files over, say you have a SSD on your computer, like I have on this computer, and it's 100 gigabytes of a huge video. Maybe that video is like release, you know, super high quality, or it's like 8 hours long or something. And you go, all right, I got this super fast SSD. It's gonna be useful for transferring it, but where are you gonna transfer it to? Is it going to be to another drive? And is that drive, say that drive is just a normal disk drive, that the most it can receive is like 100 megabytes per second. So you basically it's wasting that speed that you're looking for. Basically, unless you transfer from one SSD to another. Or another example is, say you've got an SSD that's super fast, but you're going to transfer it to another computer because that other computer is what's going to edit that file. So are you going to, hey Snark, so are you going to get another SSD, or just take the SSD out, put it on the other computer, and then use that? Or are you going to transfer it over the network? Most people are going to transfer it over the network. But then you're limited to, you know, what your gigabit speed is, and typically that's about 120 megabytes per second over the network. So, you know, all that extra speed is kind of going nowhere. So, so for me, you know, all these super fast speeds, and it doesn't really make a big difference. I prefer reliability. I prefer, yeah, that's pretty much longevity, I guess. Because there are certain SSDs you could write a lot more and more often. But the thing is, nowadays, you can have the same type, like TLC layers, that weren't so great in the past because there's only a limited number of writes. But pretty much you can, even if you wrote like 10 terabytes a day to these TLC types of memory, it'll still take something like absurd 27 years or something in order to do it. But then you're not going to be using the same SSD 27 years from now. Like, there's going to be something else. You know, it'll be 100 times as fast. It would be, if it's at the same price, maybe like 100 times as cheap. It'd just be crazy 27 years from now. Because imagine keeping cassette tapes from 27 years ago or something, right? And saying, and having like the best Walkman to fast forward like 2 times, 3 times faster than an average Walkman. You know, it's just gonna get outdated fast. Who cares? You know, the next thing is, I mean, who cares that if it was that Walkman and that cassette tape, it's gonna last 27 years. It's just gonna be outdated.
No, I see what you're saying. Yeah. What I hear you saying is the cassette tapes, even though that's faster, this is reliable, right?
Yeah, well, I'm putting it the wrong way, and maybe it's just I'm late. It's just late. Like I just okay. Let's see. Like, say you had a cassette tape back in the 80s, saying, "Hey, this cassette tape, we have a new film layer, which is going to make it so it can last 100 years." And it costs $1,000 for each of these cassette tapes, but it's gonna be worth it. But then how many people are using cassette tapes now?
I get that. Okay.
Yeah. So 100 years from now, what does it matter if it lasts 100 years? We just want it to last maybe 10 years, because we know in 10 years there's going to be something else that's going to hold it and be more reliable, etc. So that's kind of the thing with technology, is it's going to evolve to something better, more reliable and faster and cheaper. So don't spend like so much money on it now. Just get what you need to do with it, and then when you realize you've got some sort of bottleneck where you can't do something, then go ahead and buy what you need. Because like people, I remember wanting faster and more memory for their computers, like in the 90s, I think it was, or even in 2000s. They would pay like $500 for maybe like 256 megabytes of memory. $500 just because it's new. Most people didn't need it back then, but I guess if you had money to spare, you would buy it. And then things got cheaper over the course of time. I mean, right now you can get, maybe for $500 you can probably get a set of 32 gigabytes of DDR4 memory. But do you need 34 gigabytes of DDR4 memory right now? Probably not. Snork, you're muted.
Us muters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Well, yeah, Snork might need it.
Yeah. A lot of people don't need it.
Yeah. The only
I do remember for a 256K memory stick of, I'm trying to think what the appropriate term was back then. Before SIM, right? We called them but there was a 256K, not 256 meg, not 256 gigabyte, was about $300.
I remember that.
It's crazy.
And I worked in a factory, and I'd taken two to my desk, and as soon as I took them to my desk, I couldn't return them to the factory as being sellable, so I was forced to discard them. So I put them in a bag. I had permission to take them off the building, and I forgot about them. A couple of years later, I'd switched companies, and my boss had a computer that was compatible with that memory, and they were, I believe, one or 2 megabyte chip or cards, and I think their value was like $2,000 or $3,000 a piece. And he's like, "Oh, I wish I could afford more memory." Oh, here. And back then, you either had to be running what came before Warp, the IBM version of NT, or maybe it was Warp, but and then you pretty much had to use it as a RAM drive. It was hard to use all of that memory from the applications I had back then.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, here's a couple sticks.
Yeah. I mean, I have 64 gigabytes of memory on some of my systems, and the only reason I use that is for my video editing. When I did do a lot of video editing, the only problem is, I think even when I did do video editing, at most I think it used up 24 gigabytes of memory. It didn't use up any more than that than it needed to. So that just speeded up. So what I did was get a RAM disk. Made a RAM disk of the leftover like 40 gigs, and that actually sped up the encoding, because once you've got your video file that it's editing all from, and then you're encoding it to, you're creating a new file so it has to write to it too, and so that part is speeded up as well. So I pretty much transfer every video and create new videos all on a RAM disk, which is basically a disk made out of the random access memory, and it's fast. It's blazing fast.
A lot of software also needs a scratch disk.
Yeah.
You're writing a file and you're constantly writing to the file, and that's a great place to put your RAM disk.
Yeah.
And you notice the speed. There are some programs that require 3 separate disks: your operating system disk, your data disk, and your scratch disk.
Yeah.
And if you have them all separated, then you can be writing to all 3 simultaneously. And
what's a scratch disk?
Well, it's a scratch disk is one that holds temporary data for use by the program. And let's say you're building something that the file size is going to be 300 or 400 gigabyte for the file that it needs to construct the object you're doing. So it's many times the size of the memory of the computer. So you swap in sections of memory as you need it, and then it goes out and works on it. And then sometimes it might make a second pass and update all of those cells again. It's probably very similar to video editing.
Databases use that all the time. You need a lot of just.
So you make a complete copy of the database, and it's called rollback. And then you make a step, and then you store that, and you keep storing all of these different steps of your database. And then at the end, you verify that all of your steps worked correctly. And then you do a roll-up, and you mark that as your new space, and you kill all your scratch. You've done that in your databases?
Not necessarily. Right now, the databases, the Oracle databases that I work with, it's all managed by a database team. Mm-hmm. But all I do is I just look at the one pass or multi passes and see how well they're being utilized. If there's a lot of one passes, that's not good because it's, or was it better?
Financial tracking has to use rollback. Yeah. I hardly ever had to use it.
Yeah, so basically it slows things down because at least in Oracle databases, what happens is not only are you just using the temp table space, you're also writing a log to a file directory, and then because once that temp table space runs out, you write it to this log so it can access that log and get the data back, because you just don't have enough space there. So it uses a disk space. So what you do is if you enlarge that temp table space, which basically made up of memory, it doesn't have to write out to that file as much. So all of it's just stored there. Multipass is worse because what it does is it creates multiple files where it has to reference on a directory. And if that directory isn't on an SSD, but it's on a hard disk drive, which is a lot slower, then that process can take a lot longer. Anyways, that's all I did as far as just seeing how well our database is doing as far as performance, because we get these slowdown complaints, and I'm the only one that usually looks at it. So I'd look at either, what's our hardware, I'll monitor our hardware, I'll look at the database, see if there's any slowdowns there, and that's where a lot of them occurs. Look at that hardware setup for the database even. And then software stuff, I just ask the developers just kind of some basic questions, and they're pretty good at it as far as how they set up the software to, with the database or anything else. Network is usually the last thing to check nowadays. Memory is the last thing to check. It's usually CPU speed, multi-threading, database, and that's kind of it. That's usually where all the slowdowns are occurring as far as me. But yeah, it's people don't really check that. And it used to be a lot more important in the past, but not so much anymore, because now we could just throw additional hardware to resolve these problems, because hardware's gotten so much faster and efficient. The thing is, a lot of older companies or bureaucratic companies, like for example, I just needed something to do parallel programming a lot faster, and all it takes is a graphics card. That's $100, $200, but you can't fit a graphics card in these rack-mounted servers, so they need to get a just normal desktop type of server. It's pretty cheap. You could build one for like $400. Except,
Really?
yeah. And then these corporations, right? They go through these third parties or something. So we get an estimate back. They go, oh, because there's redundancy and all this, it would cost about $250,000. I'm like, $250,000? I could do it in like $400. Just let me do it with $400. And then even if it's redundancy, you know, for 3 different places, yeah, I'll just make 3 of them times 400. It's $1,200. It's just no way it costs $250,000. And so I'm kind of resorted to, all right, we can't throw hardware to solve the problem, so let's just look into these little details, like, you know, looking at the one-pass multi-passes and see how big the table space is. You know, how much memory is being used for caching and all this other stuff. It's like, this is 2017. We don't need to do stuff like it was 2007 anymore. But it's
God, I'd love to have my own server.
Your desktop could be used as a server. Your notebook could be used as a server. All a server is basically handling certain applications and processes, so your computer doesn't have to. So, like for example, we use Zoom, right? It's what we all have installed and running on our desktop or laptop or our phone, but all the actual processing for the video and all this other stuff, encoding, is done on a server. So we don't have to use up our resources to make it work and look good. It just relies on a server that Zoom owns to do all that stuff. So that's all it is.
But then if we did something on our server, our own, then we can.
Well, on
the rules, right?
No, not necessarily, because there'd be a lot more communication involved and borrowing of resources. Like I'm sure Snork or Mitch's computer is much faster, so we probably use a lot more of his resources than we would of ours. And then so he would kind of be like the host computer where he handles the communication, since his is the faster computer. And so we would just be.
Tonight I seem to have a very unstable internet.
Yeah.
It's getting better, but at the same time, James said he had his problem. I had the same message.
And I was having issues. I had to go.
Yeah, I got the same message as well.
I took a look at Down Detector, and it was across the country.
Do you think it's the cold weather?
No, I think they picked today for some kind of upgrade.
Oh, screw them. They should have done it when we're not on.
Which is funny because I just got a letter maybe a week ago that said if I, unplugged my router, plugged it back in, I'd get faster speeds and all this stuff. Where the hell is it? Not seeing it. I mean, it doesn't matter how fast your internet is if you don't have a stable connection.
Yeah. Oh, one thing to look into is have them check on their end, because if you call the ISP, they can actually see the speeds from their server, if it's called a server, their side going to your modem, and sometimes they cut it off, like the bandwidth. For example, like where I live, there's new students, Tufts University students coming in and leaving, so they always switch out their ISP service So sometimes they mess with mine, and I go, my everything's slow. They go, oh, just reset your modem or reset your router. Like I just did that like 3 times and still slow. And they go, all right, do it one more time, but stay on the phone. So I'm always talking with them for half an hour, and they go, oh, yeah, looks like someone was out there and they switched you to a lower bandwidth service. So sometimes I don't even know until I just like, why is everything so slow?
Could be paying more.
Yeah, but most of the time,
I think they only guarantee a certain percentage of what you're paying for as far as speed goes. Am I correct? It's like there's only like I forget the percentage, but they don't have to. Even if you're paying for whatever speed that you're paying for, they don't have to actually meet that. Only a certain percentage of it, which is totally screwed up.
Depends on your contract and your ISP. But the thing is, if you don't notice and if you don't log it for as like say you notice it was 2 weeks that it was so slow, they won't charge you for those 2 weeks. But if you just noticed it that day, but it was happening for 2 weeks, they'll just fix it, and those 2 weeks where it was slow, you don't get compensated. So you make sure that you tell them when it started, and then they'll compensate and say, okay, sorry for that. It depends. I have RCN, which is great. Otherwise, I'd have Comcast, which I'm sure they wouldn't care.
Yeah, I know my ex-husband, I mean, as much problems as I had with him, he was totally great when it came to our internet service. He was a huge online gamer, so it wasn't that we had like a huge problem with speed. It was we kept getting kicked constantly, and off of our internet, and it's like, and he would call and harass them nonstop. See, I'm too nice for that. I can't do it. So he would call and he'd be the asshole, just be like, you better come out here and you better fix this, And so, after like a month of just constantly fighting these people, they came out and they looked at the setup, and it showed like that they had set something up wrong to where we kept getting booted from it. So I don't know, I'm probably not using the right lingo for that, but I'm not a tech person.
You're saying it the way I can understand it, so okay.
We're getting a new modem Friday. They said that we have a problem.
Yeah.
What happened?
Sometimes what they do is they upgrade some infrastructure part, but then the modems can't handle it, and they can't do it even with a firmware update. It's just the hardware. It's just can't handle it, so they always have to issue new modems. So it's always good to call up and saying, hey, is my modem up to date?
Do they bring them to the house? Do I have to take it in, or
my company UPS's it to me?
What do you do? Just wrap up the other one and then they take it back, or what?
Or you drop it off at their nearest facility, which for me is a 35-mile drive over, 35-mile drive back. And occasionally they have to change a wire outside when they do it. If that's the case, then they take it back with them.
Because I don't think we had a new one for like 8 years.
Yeah.
I've had like 3 this year.
Always call, just every once in a while. You could just say, hey, my modem seems to be acting up, even though it isn't. And say if there's like you get a replacement, or if there's a newer version or something, they'll always replace it for you.
That's a good idea. Ever since, see, I upgraded my speeds. They used to be we didn't have a data cap here. Well, they did, but they never enforced it. But then once they did, my internet bill was like $300. So I was like, okay, give me the unlimited plan. So they gave me a new router, and then ever since they gave me that router, I've been having trouble. I couldn't play Destiny. I kept having issues with it was saying like I can't remember what it was saying, but it was I'm not sure if it's my router or if it's the modem, but I've got 2 modems right now. One's for like my landline and one's for the internet. It's very confusing. I don't understand any of it, but I just know that stuff's not working like it should. My Xbox won't freaking connect to the internet most of the time. I have to reset everything in order to do it. it's just a big hassle. I don't know. I need to call them and be an asshole, I guess. I'll try my best.
Just think of somebody you really dislike.
I'll just pretend it's my ex-husband. Please come fix this shit.
Well, what's actually better is if you go in person to, if they have like a store, like a building where you can actually go and talk with them. It's like their only interaction with customers is kind of face to face. If you're nice to them, they'll hook you up. They go, you know what? I like you. We're gonna give you a faster service just for free.
I got my best response.
Really?
When I asked on Twitter, is anybody else having this problem? And suddenly that I get the answer back. Oh, we checked. You have the wrong modem. You should be able to get 50 meg up.
Okay, say that again about Twitter.
On Twitter, I went to their Twitter account.
Oh, dear God.
And I asked, does anybody else have this problem?
Thank you. That's what I'm doing.
And suddenly, all kinds of people were hitting back with that repair hashtag. Yes.
Yeah. It's bad, especially on Twitter when everyone sees you're having an issue, and then they can make it bigger news. So they want to write it right away.
Real fast.
Yeah.
They want to be able to say online, was your problem solved?
That's a better weapon. Oh my God, because all eyes are on them.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to try all the above because I've got so many games that I was not even, because every time I tried to get on my Xbox and get online to play with other people, it just wouldn't connect to the server. It was saying some kind of like security issue or something like that. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I mean, I couldn't play Gears. I couldn't play Destiny. I'm like, I just invested some money, which is no small thing for me, to play these games. And now I mean, I think I'm like a level 8 on Destiny because I never got to play it. And now they got Destiny 2, and I still haven't even freaking played the first one. I just gave up after a while. I'm like, fuck it. It's not going to work.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but that sounds like
it is. It's just like
it's my life too.
Yeah. I feel like if I want to go back to PC gaming so bad. Just Xbox just pisses me off so much. Our
Xbox keeps interfering with our internet, and it just we have to turn it all the way off, and it's been off a lot more than on, and we're just thinking, why?
Yeah.
Try and get you back on that cable. Gotta watch that TV. Get your landline, man. Best way to turn people from something is to make it annoying. Make the internet annoying. Get them back on cable.
God, that would be a sad day to give up internet just to stay off cable.
Buddy, I've gone without food. I've pawned stuff, all for internet, man. Like that's my lifeline. That's how I talk to people. That's how I get my information. That's how I get. I mean, it's just. It really should be something like considered like water or electric a basic utility. Like that. It really should be something that should be socialized. I mean, but hell, if we can't even get water and electric socialized, I mean, internet's lower on the list.
That's why
I'm sure Flint people would. I'm sure Flint people would be going, please.
But the internet to me should be just like the post office.
Mm-hmm.
There should be, if you have a post office, maybe there should be a national. Everybody has a little computer that can at least get email.
And here's the thing: if net neutrality passes and they slow down whatever it is that you have, where you have to pay more. There's so many, especially if you're a gamer, there's so many games, even on your phone, where you have to have a connection to the internet to play. Even Steam games especially, so you can't even play it offline when you're not connected. So there's going to be just lawsuits left and right. It's like, who do you sue? Do you sue Steam, where you have to... sorry, go ahead, Snark.
Many independent inventors like myself. Or software, CAD soft program has to identify that it's legit by calling home before it lets you use it. So technical innovation will come to an absolute stop if they throttle it.
Yeah.
I suppose if there's any plus side, it's that landside games like StarCraft Brood Horde about to hit a huge fucking boom.
Yeah.
I really miss games that you could load from your CD with no internet connection and run them.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. I'm sure.
StarCraft, the game that never dies.
Yeah, a lot of it is you have to connect to internet just to put in your like product key or CD key these days. Back then, they used to store it on in a file, like installation file, and if it was within one of those like keys that are in that file, then it'll install. But if not, it just keeps asking you for it. And of course, people found a way around those because they would just have these randomizers where you just put in a random one and then it unlocks the game. But so then that's what they had. So you have to connect to a server.
Well, when you lost the actual key itself.
Yeah, that too.
Oh, those, yeah.
Keegan.
That was my huge problem when Xbox first, when they were releasing the Xbox One, was like you had to have an internet connection. I'm like, buddy, you don't understand. I live in a rural area. My internet connection isn't the greatest. So if I could just like get a game that I can download and just play, that would be freaking fantastic. And sometimes it's like sometimes you have to go a couple weeks before you get your internet back on. So, so you just can't play Xbox in that time. It just didn't seem very well thought out. But I guess they're so obsessed with making sure everybody buys a copy of the game and making sure that nobody gets to share. I mean, like back in the day, you could say, "Oh, I want to play Super Mario." Okay, well, here's my freaking cartridge. You can't do that these days. But that's the thing. It's like they've just made it so miserable. It's like airlines and stuff. It's like just microtransactions everywhere. I don't know. I don't know what the future of gaming is. That's why I want to go back to PC. It's just Xbox crap is just driving me up the wall.
Can you explain to me why you guys' internet goes off for that long?
Hmm?
You were saying like sometimes you go 2 weeks without internet, Stevie?
Oh, well, it'll get shut off because I don't pay it. It just because the way the paydays fall and I gotta pay like all these utilities with this one, and then I gotta pay. It's like so. Sometimes it's like I have to wait a week. It'll get shut off, and then I gotta wait a week before I can get it turned back on. So.
Well, I hear people say that sometimes they don't have internet, and so
That would be like me.
Yeah, why?
They tend to do an upgrade at night, and usually it's between midnight or 1 o'clock, and sometimes it's till 5 a.m. However, when President Trump came to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, 60 miles away from here, 3 days before, all resident internet went down for like 3 days. It was like
the fucking Trump.
Well, they say it was just a problem with wires or something. They never gave a real reason. But
that is so bullshit.
Just the communications went down, and you could not like hit anything like Facebook or whatever until Trump left.
Go home, Trump.
Yeah, well, there was people organizing massive protests against it in Cedar Rapids, and boom, the internet just went down. Just couldn't get anything done for days.
Oh my God! What about the bills? Oh my God!
Just 3 days without internet, I'd turn into Nell. You ever see that movie, Jodie Foster? I just like, what? I don't understand. Like, that social connection would be cut off, man. I lose my mind after 3 days without internet.
I lose my mind after 3 hours.
I'd actually be okay.
The Amish days, man. It's like, damn. I guess I'm gonna turn my own better and read a book or something. I don't know.
I know.
I wouldn't mind. The only thing is like, yeah, you just get disconnected. I mean, like we can discuss about anything that occurs out there using the internet. If we didn't have it, I'd be out playing basketball, fishing, just reading books, watching movies. It'd just be
And talking to your wife.
yeah.
You
No,
got somebody.
Playing with your damn kids. Shit.
Yeah.
All that boring stuff.
I mean,
Somebody that
this
actually likes listening to you. Oh wait, no.
Oh.
That did not come out right. I'm sorry, that did not.
No, that's right.
Actually, I will get a message occasionally. When food? My daughter has moved her computers upstairs.
Oh.
And I stayed in the basement, so sometimes she'll send me a Facebook reminder that it's time for me to cook. It'll be a real short message. When food?
Oh, and try finding like imagine ordering food, but you don't have a yellow pages, right? You have to look it up through your online. So how are you going to call them to order food? And you can't do online ordering. You have to call up on your on the phone, figure out what the phone number is, call them. You don't know what the menu is. You go, hey, do you have this and this? They go, no, I'm sorry. It's like,
do I even know how to use the yellow pages anymore?
Yeah, I mean, even if you did have the yellow pages, you don't know what type of food, what their menu is. Like, unless they actually gave you a menu from like a flyer or something, because they don't even give out flyers all that much anymore. You know,
that happened when the internet was out here when Trump came to the area. I didn't know all the names of restaurants or what they had. You know what I did? I got in the car and drove around.
The old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
Well, at least it was a car.
No. I got in my bike and rode around. That was before I had my car.
Oh.
Yeah. And I remember, I mean, even phones are great, because I remember when I was a kid, me and my brother were in like further away, Washington near Seattle, and my mom was still over in Texas working, but she couldn't speak English, so she was hungry and she didn't know, she just wanted some food. So what my brother did was he remembered like one of the pizza places, the phone numbers, because we'd eat there all the time, or we'd order pizza all the time. He called long distance to order food for her, and they were able to bring food, and she was able to pay it, but she couldn't do it because she can't talk English very well. We always did it for her, so that also helps. It's like every technology always helps in some way, and just if you take it away, you're just regressing back to the previous methods. And you know, what are we gonna do? We can't like send a mail, like a physical mail, letters ordering food. You know, it'll take a day or two, and they won't say yes. And then I don't know. Some places don't even accept checks anymore. So if you don't even have cash or credit card, they're like, I'm sorry, we don't accept checks. It's like, what good are checks for?
Goes down. Credit cards go down too.
Yeah.
Especially out here.
Yeah. And I think that's a problem. Like, if like in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, as we're getting to where we are now, a lot of the legacy stuff has been shut down. So we can't, if something happens and all of this is gone, we can't go back to where it was in the 2000s or even the 90s. We're pretty much back in the 60s, 70s.
Yeah, I mean, I've had that problem where, okay, because I'm kind of like doubly screwed when the internet goes out because my landline is attached to it. I don't have a cell phone, so I have no way of calling. I mean, it's just like totally shut off from the outside world. I live in the country. That's it. You know, like I don't have a driver's license. I can't really go out. So it's like, wow, like I just feel like a caveman when it happens. And like, but that's a good point that you brought up, is because like when that technology becomes obsolete, you move on to the next thing. You don't have that anymore. I mean, you look at payphones. I've been in so many positions where I've been out and I needed to make a phone call. There's no payphones anymore. And it's just like, well, I mean, you have to go in there and ask a business, can I use your phone? And most of the time they're like, buy something, or, get out, you bum, or whatever. It's like, you just can't, I mean, unless you have a cell phone, you're kind of screwed.
Very much.
Yeah. Oh man, that's like our own Twilight Zone episode. We're just so used to. It's like, all right, how do we do things now without internet? How do we do things now without credit cards or phones?
It's like when your electric goes out and you walk into a room, you flip the light switch on and you feel like a dumbass. It's like, oh, damn it. Like, I can't, okay, so I don't have internet. I can't order food online. So let me just look up the number. Oh shit, I can't do that.
Yeah. Oh.
It's like constantly there's these roadblocks you just keep forgetting. It's like, oh wait, I don't have technology.
Yeah.
It's so important.
Or you got, I got an easy solution. I got a flashlight and it doesn't work. And it's like, oh, batteries. I just need to recharge them. Oh, wait, I can't recharge them. We rely so much on electricity and we rely so much on technology, especially stuff that's just used everywhere now. It's like the internet is pretty much everything. It replaced pretty much every technology out there. So it's I feel like it being able to be controlled or throttled or whatever, it just it's not a good or smart idea.
And I've even tried to find ways around like the no cell phone thing. There's certain apps that you can download if you have like a tablet or whatever that you can do like free texting and stuff like that. But the thing is like you have to have a Wi-Fi connection in order for that to work. And if you don't have that, then you're screwed. So if you're, out in the middle of nowhere, which is most places here, and even a lot of businesses is like, they don't have, the free Wi-Fi, that you can just use. So, it's kind of rough to kind of rely on something like that. But if you don't have any internet at all, then your communication is just totally down. But they know that. That's why they do it.
And excuse me. Oh crap! Sorry, I just got distracted and I can't remember what I was going to say. Sorry.
Just take your time.
That's okay. It happens to me all the time.
Me too.
I did that during the Graham interview. I was like, I got all riled up about something. I was like, wait a second, what was the question? I totally forgot.
Yeah, I got one tomorrow.
Oh, it's tomorrow. Right. Oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait to watch this. It's going to be great.
What time?
Yeah, Graham's going to love you.
What?
3 p.m.
Which?
Time, but I don't know what time it will be broadcast.
What channel?
Stevie?
I think mine came out the next day. So he's usually pretty good about like doing it one day, then it comes out the next day.
Can you guys forward me these links? Because I don't think I have them subscribed.
Graham Elwood.
That's his YouTube channel?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if that is it.
I'll post the link in.
Okay.
I like that name. He's got a good name for a handle.
He's a comedian. Comedians are very good observers.
Somebody told me that, and I was like, are you kidding? Because he's not funny. He's very polite. He's not rude like a lot of comedians are.
Mm-hmm. I mean, but if you look at the good ones like Robin Williams, I can't think of their names. 7 Deadly Words.
George Carlin.
Hello, yes, Carlin. They're all really good observers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what I really liked about Louis C.K. back in the day, before he started looking Hillary Clinton's pantsuit. But seriously, he was really good at just observing just the awfulness of the world, you know, divorce with kids and all this. I mean, just so brutally honest. And then I don't know what's been going on with him the past couple of years, man. But he used to be pretty good. He used to be really good.
Wait, do you all remember addresses where you used to live?
Yeah.
Some of them.
I don't.
Yeah.
Okay, because you mentioned Federal Way again, right? Remember how we figured out we lived close to each other somewhere?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
So
North.
So mine was 1300 Southwest Campus Drive, 98023, I think.
How far away was that from that Northwest Foursquare Church?
I never paid attention to churches or anything, so I don't know.
I had to go by it all the time. There's North Shore Recycling Service. There's a grocery store on a corner. I can't remember what that corner was.
Any landmarks? Like
Giving you them.
I mean,
Here, give me the address again.
it was 1300 Southwest Campus Drive.
Whoa, that went by fast. What?
1300 Southwest Campus Drive.
Okay.
Initially, the more I realized.
You okay there, Aeolus?
Huh? Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I've heard something too.
Huh?
Getting some beeps and it's very quiet.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that.
Oh.
By the way, sorry I left in the middle of that our conversation earlier. The friend I was visiting in Canada came to my hotel, so I just sort of had to put down everything. So what are we talking about right now? Net neutrality.
Having bad memories and
to answer the question about do I remember my addresses? The answer is yes, but that's only because I've only lived at one address.
Yeah.
That's cheating.
Okay, that's technically a lie. I lived at two addresses, but one of them was only for like about a couple months, and the first one I lived at, I only lived in for one day. Because that was the first day I was alive, and the next day we were moving to my current house.
Question. So, how does Hillary Clinton fix this in 2020? Does she use the same thing, Madame President 2020, or is it like Supreme Leader Hillary, just like Supreme Leader Snoke? I don't know. How do you?
Chelsea Clinton's going to cleave her in half with a lightsaber, like partway through the election.
It's just, what was Hillary Clinton's 2008 thing? Was there one?
I think it was some. Like I remember she was a little less stringent about gun regulations.
Yeah, she didn't give a shit about gay rights back then either. So
yeah, there was that too.
I
mean,
let's not.
Oh, I was going to say, I think that the H will become legs instead of an arrow going across the middle, so it can be stomping over the rights of people.
I can see that. And just her slogan will be, "Come on, I'll keep running unless you vote for me this time."
This time, yeah.
It's like,
I think Democrats would be stupid enough to keep lending her support a third fucking time.
Well, there's enough out there that are just still worshiping her and crying.
Look, Peter Dow doesn't fucking count.
the party, local party here, wanted to try to see if they could get her here for a fundraiser.
Peter Dow's delusional fantasies do not count.
I mean, she has the money, which means she has the control. I mean, you see that with the panels with, anytime there's a panel with the Democratic Party, it's always Hillary's people have the majority, Bernie's people have the minority. She still runs that shit, even if she's not elected anywhere. She's still running it. They're still doing her bidding.
Oh, well. I think I better go to bed.
Yeah.
It's getting hard to breathe.
I gotta wake up in a few hours.
You can breathe with a 20-pound cat on your chest.
Shit, man.
Anyways, you guys can keep it going, Stevie, Amanda?
Do you want to, or do you want to go to bed?
I could kind of go either way.
I'm either way, too.
I think we'll call it a night. I don't want to burn anybody out with my gabbing, so.
We like your gabbing.
Play some video games while I still can.
Okay.
All right.
Good night, guys.
Good night, everyone.